All right, so it is about 4 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and get started just because we have quite a lot to, whoops, sorry about that. We have quite a lot to cover today. So as I mentioned earlier, my name is Zoe Mills. I am the head of information services at Acton Memorial Library. The head of information services was previously known as the head of adult services. Today, we're going to be talking about resumes, and then at the end, I will go over how to sign up for interview coaching and more one-on-one sessions. And as I mentioned earlier, please feel free to use the chat and Q&A function throughout this webinar to ask any questions that might come up. So first, I want to kind of outline our goals for today's webinar. We're going to start by understanding resumes and how they function. Then we'll jump into different formatting and content, as well as tips and strategies and resume resources that you can use after this webinar to spruce up your resume. And then we'll go over registering for the interview coaching portion of our career workshop, which is in partnership with Acton Boxborough United Way. So first, we're going to talk about understanding resumes. So the first question is, like, what is a resume and why are they important? A resume is an important tool when it comes to searching for jobs. Remember, hiring managers use resumes to screen potential employees. Managers typically look at a resume for less than 15 seconds before deciding if they want to consider you as a candidate or not. So format and content are of utmost importance. For you, a resume is a tool that's designed to get you to the next step in the employment process, the interview. It can even help you prepare for the interview by giving you specific items to practice talking about. Most hiring managers will tell you that they use a resume as a screening tool to select which candidates to interview and which to rule out. Some hiring managers perform this screening themselves, but many let someone else, even a computer, to do the screening for them. Did you know that some hiring managers may scan more than 100 resumes to fill just one position? This means a hiring manager might only spend a few seconds scanning each one. Obviously, you'll want to make your resume or take a closer look at your resume. A resume provides the hiring manager with his or her very first impression of you. A well-written one could be your ticket into an interview. So next, what should be included in your resume? First and foremost, your contact information. This is important so the hiring manager can easily contact you if needed. It's always located at the top, and it explains who you are and how to contact you, usually a phone number and an email. Next is an optional piece of content to include, which is a professional summary, and this is sometimes called a profile. That gives the hiring manager a glimpse of your skills and accomplishments. Next is your employment history, which should provide specific details about the accomplishments and successes you've had in your previous jobs. It always includes the names and locations of the employer and should include a job title that is generally understandable. Dates are often included in this section, although you may want to omit them if you have gaps in your employment history. Next is your education history. And this should include the certifications or degrees you have earned, the institutions from which you've earned them, and the dates they were awarded. Any additional skills and information that highlight any technical or specialized skills you have that are applicable to the position can also be added to your resume. So I have a question here. Where should gaps in employment be addressed? So I think we are all in a very unique position in terms of navigating gaps in employment, just because we have all experienced COVID and a lot of us were either laid off or took time off to be with family. So usually gaps are not addressed in the resume, and sometimes they may be addressed in the interview. And that's something that you would be able to work with your volunteer one-on-one interview coach to work on how you would address it and how it should be addressed. So with the content squared away, sorry, let me just make sure I know where we are in the slide. Next, it's important to talk about formatting, and this can answer a lot of questions, especially about those who might have gaps in their employment history. There are specific resume formats that help you kind of navigate those gaps and still sell yourself and still provide a knockout resume. I have just a short video here about resume formats.
Choosing the right resume format.
Whoops. Sorry about that. Technology can be a little fickle.
Choosing the right resume format is a critical part of building a great resume, which is why we're here to help you find the format that works best for you. The most common format is the chronological resume. This format lists your work history from your current or most recent job to your next most recent job, and so on. Each entry includes your job title, company name, and dates of employment, along with your tasks and achievements. This format is a great all-around choice for most job seekers. It's clear, reliable, and popular with employers. Another format is the functional resume, also known as a skills-based resume. This format highlights your skills, tasks, and job titles without revealing the dates of your job history. It's important to note that many hiring managers do not like this format because they can't use it to gauge your longevity or how recently you've used certain skills. Nevertheless, the functional resume may work well if you are changing careers or if you have gaps in your employment history. However, if you take the functional resume and add dates to the job history, then you have the much more popular combination resume. The combination resume combines the two previous formats by listing job skills and experience while also providing dates of employment. This format works well for many types of job seekers, such as those who have a diverse skill set, are trying to change careers, or have a steady work history. Employers like this format because it focuses on skills and experience while providing a clear timeline of your job history. Choosing the right format is a big part of making your resume effective, so take the time to find the type that presents you in the best light possible.
Goodwill Community Foundation.
So first we're going to talk about all three formats that were mentioned in the video. The video was just a quick introduction to the formats, and then I'm going to take some time to delve deeper into what's included in those formats and which format works best for who. So the first is the chronological resume, and this is the most commonly used resume format when applying for jobs. On a chronological resume, your work history is listed by job title, beginning with your current or most recent job. The chronological resume works best for job seekers who want to showcase a steady employment history, are looking for a position that matches or logically progresses from previous jobs, are seeking a conventional position like as an office clerk, accountant, or a teacher. On a chronological resume, every job in your work history is listed with dates in reverse chronological order. This means your most recent or current job is listed first, like this one here pictured on the right. It might be a little small, but you can see here that Joe was a bookkeeper manager at Natural Foods from 2011 to present. And then following that, he was a bookkeeper from 2008 to 2011 at Diva Hair School. So you can see it moves down reverse chronologically. On a chronological resume, each job has the employer's name and location and a job title that can be understood by anyone, like bookkeeper or manager. On a chronological resume, every job that is listed should be written in a way that makes it relevant to the position you are seeking. In this sample, Joe tailored his clerk and teller positions with cash transaction language that related to bookkeeping. Also, by including these experiences, he has shown a steady work history since 2003. So you can see in 2003, he was a teller at Universal Bank, but he made it relevant to bookkeeper by including processed and handled cash transactions within his description. So when you create a chronological resume, you want to make sure everything kind of ties together and shows a progression. Sorry if you can hear my cat. She's being very needy today. It will show a logical progression, like you're working up the ladder or you're taking steps towards a leadership position. Next is the functional resume. A less popular resume format among recruiters and hiring staff, the functional resume highlights your skills without revealing the dates associated with your job history. So this is a great resume for those who have gaps that they don't want to address during the interview process. The functional resume minimizes specific job titles and eliminates dates of employment while emphasizing your abilities and skills by placing them in functional skill categories. The functional resume works well if you have worked many different jobs or possess very diverse skills, have skills that relate to the position but not a lot of previous work experience in the field, have gaps in employment history, are a recent graduate or are changing careers, and are a mature worker and want to de-emphasize your age. The skills area lists specific skill sets like contracts management and leadership. These functional skills should directly relate to the position you want. Notice that each skill function has a short description of how rather than where each skill was demonstrated. This is good for job seekers who have had a variety of seemingly unrelated experiences to draw from. In addition, each description provides examples of measurable responsibilities and accomplishments in each particular skill area. On a functional resume, the work history area lists current and previous jobs but does not include dates. This may be a good strategy for job seekers who want to minimize a long break in employment or for older job seekers who worry that age may be a limiting factor. As always, the name and location of the employer should be listed, along with a job title that anyone can understand. Many hiring managers dislike the functional resume because they can't use it to gauge your reliability, longevity, or how recently you use certain skills. For example, someone who created sales brochures 20 years ago may not be familiar with the software technologies used to produce a sales brochure today. And you can see here on the right-hand side, it is an example of a functional resume. You can see that everything's kind of written in a narrative form with specific categories. So you can see that Miranda was working in property management at one point and then became a paralegal for real estate. So they don't necessarily lead into each other like a chronological resume, but they're still organized in a way that portrays information and skill or information about the skills and accomplishments you have. Next is the combination resume, which is literally a combination of the functional and chronological. It includes functional skill categories, but also lists the dates of previous employment. This format works well for job seekers who may have obtained the required skills from seemingly unrelated industries or jobs, are trying to change careers and want to emphasize transferable skills, or have had a steady work history. The functional skills area includes broad categories of skills like coaching and counseling that are written to match the job requirement of the position you are trying to get. Each skill has its own description that provides evidence of how the skill was used in previous jobs, as well as specific measurements of performance. On a combination resume, the work history section lists current and previous jobs in chronological order. It differs from the functional resume because it includes dates of employment. Should also include the name and location of the employer, in addition to a job title that can be understood by anyone. The combination resume works well for anyone, and employers like this format because it focuses on skills and experience, but doesn't hide employment history. So this may be a good option for those who are worried about gaps in their employment and don't want to do functional resume or don't want to use a functional resume format. So this is a good option. I think gaps aren't as serious of a problem as longevity is. So if you, prior to your gap in work, if you've worked longer job, like if you've spent some time at one job, you can still showcase your longevity and reliability and willingness to stay with a company. And that can be shown in both the chronological and the combination resume. So next we're going to talk about resume content. We're going to go piece by piece and talk about what should be included in it and how you should format it. First is your contact information. You probably already know that your contact information, which includes your name, address, phone number, and email address, should always appear at the top of your resume, regardless of which resume format you are using. But did you know that some employers actually use the contact information section to screen undesirable candidates? They may pass you over if you live in another part of the country in order to avoid paying relocation costs. Or they may form a negative opinion of you if your contact information is inappropriate in some way. A lot of hiring managers today will even use this information to search for you on popular social networking sites to see what is posted about you or what you have posted. So what should you include to make sure your resume doesn't get eliminated? Your first and last name. Your middle initial is optional. Include that if it is how you are known in your field, or if your name is fairly common and you want to distinguish yourself from other job candidates with the same name. You can use your given first name, for example, Elizabeth, or your shortened first name, like Liz or Beth. However, don't use a nickname, especially one that can lead someone to form an opinion about you, like Ace or Diz. Your phone number, your home and cell phone numbers are acceptable to use, and you may even want to include more than one number. However, make sure the numbers you include are ones you can actually take calls on as they come in. Your current work phone number is not a good choice if your employer does not allow personal calls or if you don't want your current company to know you are looking for another job. Make sure you have a reliable, as well as appropriate and polite, voicemail message in case you miss a call, and be sure to check your messages regularly during your job search. Your mailing address or city and state. You can include your full mailing address, street address, city, state, and zip code, or you can just put your city and the state abbreviation. Consider using your complete state name if your state abbreviation is easily confused with another, like MO, MS, or MT. Your email address. Use a conventional email address, first name dot last name at email.com or Gmail or Yahoo, whichever provider you choose, and not one with an inappropriate connotation like partygirl247 at email.com. During your job search, you will need to check your email regularly so you don't miss an opportunity. If you don't have an email account, there are many free online providers like Yahoo and Gmail that you can access at your local library or internet cafe. A link to a professional online profile or personal webpage is also an option to include. These links are generally included with your contact information, but may be listed in another section like additional information. Next is objective summaries or professional profiles. In the past, most job seekers included a career objective on their resumes to tell hiring managers what types of position they were looking for. A more recent trend is to include a summary statement or a professional profile in place of the objective. However, some job seekers include both an objective and a summary. Regardless of which you choose to include, the area should appear just under your contact information and be written with a specific job in mind. So that means you are tailoring your objective summary and professional profiles for each job you apply for. Why would you choose to include one statement over another for your resume? Here are some examples. Lily chose to include a career profile to summarize her experience and highlight the key things she wants the hiring manager to know about her. She used a bulleted list to make it easy to scan. She started with a statement about her many years of experience as an RN in a hospital because the job she is submitting her resume for requires more than 5 years as an RN, preferable in a hospital setting. Lily's second bullet emphasized her managerial experience as a charge nurse because she is hoping to get a management position. The job posting also requires a candidate who has proven ability to assess the skills of other nurses. This is why Lily focused this item on similar analytical and assessment skills in her third bullet point. She mentioned that she is a trainer because one of the position responsibilities is to manage the training of staff nurses. Zachary used a written summary statement to emphasize the skills and experiences he thinks he will need for the job he wants as a project manager. The paragraph format of Zachary's summary statement gives his resume a more personal feel than Lily's bulleted list. He included phrases like proven leadership and effective negotiations to show he is qualified to serve in a managerial role. He also included the phrases strong communication skills and successful completion of projects within budget and on time because these were listed as requirements in the job posting. Ashley used an objective to tell hiring managers what type of position she is interested in. She rewords this statement each time she submits her resume so her objective matches the job title. Using a career objective was a good choice for Ashley because she just recently graduated. She doesn't have much work experience yet. Fewer and fewer job seekers are including a career objective on their resumes. The trend to omit a career objective stems from recent research showing that candidates have a better chance to be interviewed if they write their resumes to help an employer fill an open position, which is what the employer wants, not to tell the employer what they want. However, many job seekers still include it along with a professional summary, especially if they are new to the workforce. Note that whether employers expect to see a career objective on your resume is partly dependent upon your field. In some fields, like education, job applicants are still expected to include an objective. Some resume experts believe including only a simple job title in your objective is better than writing a full statement. For example, these experts would suggest writing a position as a receptionist rather than a full-time position using my strong organization, office management, and customer service skills as a receptionist for an established financial planning firm. Should you use a summary or profile? The summary and profile statement do essentially the same thing. A summary statement simply restates the key points of your resume, usually in a short paragraph or a few bullet points. A professional profile also highlights the key points from your resume, but it usually focuses more on your accomplishments and accolades. What should this section do? Regardless of what you choose to include on your resume, the section should be focused on helping an employer meet his or her goals. This means you will want to write a slightly different objective or summary statement for each job you are trying to get. Start with the most important idea about yourself that you want to tell a hiring manager. Be brief but concise. A few bullet points of your best skills and achievements, or a sentence or two that tells a potential employer what you have to offer if he keeps reading. Position you as the best model of whatever position, role, or industry you are trying to enter. This means you should research the position before writing your resume for it. Include keywords, specifically words that every person in the field or position you are trying to get will understand. Next is your employment history. The reason a hiring manager looks at your resume is to determine whether your skills and experience are a match for his open position. Where does he look on your resume? He looks at your employment history to see if the skills and accomplishments you list show that you will be an ideal worker. In this lesson, you will learn which format is best for listing your employment history. You will also learn how to market your resume by focusing your history on accomplishments and measures rather than simply listing duties. Then you will craft an employment history for your own resume. The number one reason employers are looking at your resume is to find out if your skills and experience match their needs. How do they know what skills and experience you've had, and how can they tell if you will be an asset to their organization? They'll do it all by reading your employment history section. You want this section to be powerful and to represent you in the best possible light. However, it also must be clear, concise, and understandable to anyone who reads it. So how can you make your employment history both powerful and concise? Let's take a look at some of the most common ways to list employment history. The chronological format lists your work history with the most recent position at the top. In the example provided, Joe titled his employment history section Experience. You can use any title that makes sense for you, such as work history or professional experience. Joe is using a chronological format, so he first lists his most recent job title, employer name, location, and the dates of employment. He also describes his duties in a way that makes them relevant to the position he's seeking. For example, he notes that he supervises a staff of 25, which will give a hiring manager an understanding of his daily responsibilities. Because Joe was using chronological order, his previous work experience comes next. Again, he is specific about the duties involved in this job. For example, he calculated and distributed biweekly payroll. Details like this can help to clarify your experience for a hiring manager. Not all work experience is perfectly related. Joe did not work as a bookkeeper in the last two jobs listed on his resume. However, he focused on duties in those jobs that relate to bookkeeping. Here's a tip. Try to find ways to make your experience relevant to the job you are applying for. For example, when I started finding jobs within the library world, I was coming from a place of working in retail. And retail and libraries are similar in some respects, but they're very different in others. But I was able to use my experience with customer service to kind of get a leg up and get into the library world. So I was able to list specific customer service skills on my resume that translated to skills that are required to be a librarian. Let's take a look at the functional resume format, which lists your skills instead of detailing your work history. In an example, Miranda has listed her skills by category, including contracts management and leadership. Let's go back to Miranda's resume so you can see it. This format works well if your work history is varied or has large gaps between jobs. In a case like this, a chronological resume wouldn't demonstrate her skills as clearly. Instead of listing specific dates, Miranda has simply listed present or previous for her work history. Again, this can be helpful if you have gaps in your employment history. Many hiring managers dislike the functional resume because they can't use it to gauge your reliability, longevity, or how recently you used certain skills. For example, someone who created sales brochures 20 years ago may not be familiar with software technologies used to produce a sales brochure today. Let's take a look at a resume that combines both the functional and chronological approach. In the example, Jamie wanted to focus on her skills while still demonstrating a consistent work history. Here, Jamie has grouped her work skills into functional categories that she believes are critical for a successful teacher. She has also listed specific examples of measures where appropriate. For example, she mentions 4 months of field experience with elementary PE teachers to indicate the scope of her experience. Jamie also highlights her consistent work history chronologically. She has listed the names of companies and the dates she worked there. She also included a simple job title that can be easily understood, like coaching, teacher, athlete, and counseling. The education section tells an employer if you meet the educational requirements for a particular position. Your resume should always include this section regardless of the level of education you have achieved. To highlight your education, put this section directly below your career objective or summary of qualifications. To de-emphasize it, put the section last. To see examples of different ways to present your educational background on your resume, we're going to take a look at some profiles outlined now. Ashley is a recent graduate with work experience that is not in her career field. So she has placed her education toward the top of her resume before her work experience. Her education includes the name of the college, location, date of graduation, and degree awarded. She has also listed her high grade point average of 3.75. However, you do not have to list your GPA on your resume, especially if it is low. Recent graduates may also want to describe their program of study along with a list of relevant coursework, as Ashley has done. Zachary listed his education at the bottom of his resume because he has extensive work experience and it has been some time since he graduated. Notice that Zachary does not include the dates he earned his degrees. Some hiring managers use your date of graduation to determine your approximate age and may discriminate against you based on this information. You may choose not to include your graduation dates if you think this will be a disadvantage. Jordan's education includes not only her degree, but also her more recent certifications. She has listed her education chronologically, but you can also choose to list certifications under a separate heading. Make sure to include the school organization name, location, and certification awarded for any non-degree educational program. Someone asks, what about education abroad? Should I list converted GPA or leave it out? That's entirely up to you. If you feel as though the GPA could impact your chances of getting a job, like say you have a high degree, like say you earned a 1 or a 2 in England, then that's really good. And you could keep it. You can show your GPA that way. But I think the easiest thing is just to leave it out, because I've learned that just through my experience within a profession, GPA isn't as much of a concern as experience is. So it's not really going to affect your resume one way or another. Resumes focus on your previous job experiences. However, there may be times when including a skill or accomplishment that was gained outside of your work history could greatly influence a hiring manager. For example, did you win City Volunteer of the Year for your work with a homeless shelter? Or perhaps you have a useful language skill, such as being fluent in Spanish. There is a place for these types of things, as well as a spot to include references if you choose on your resume. Sometimes you may want to include additional information about yourself that comes from outside of your education and work history. For example, you may want to include your fluency in another language, a special community project you coordinated or managed, or maybe even your technology skills outside of what you included in your employment history. So where do you include additional skills and information on your resume? Here are some options. Sometimes your work history will indicate your computer competency, but if it is not obvious, you may want to list your computer skills separately. Many jobs require basic computer skills and knowledge of Microsoft Office, so it may be important to let a hiring manager know you have these skills. Some positions require knowledge of industry-specific computer programs. For example, a graphic artist may be expected to know Photoshop and Illustrator, so they should list these skills on their resume. For example, in the library world, we have to have knowledge for an ILS, which is an integrated library system. So this is something that I have included on my resume as I am qualified to use this program. Some positions require specific technical skills that are common in a particular industry. For example, a contractor would be expected to be able to read blueprints, prepare bid work, operate construction equipment, and understand OSHA safety procedures. In this sample, technical skills are considered a priority and are listed with certifications and placed at the top of the resume under the summary. Where you place your additional information may depend on what priority your industry gives to knowing certain skills. You may want to list any associations you are affiliated with, especially if they are standard in your industry. For example, I am affiliated with the American Library Association, which is the main association for libraries in America, so I have that included on my resume as well. For example, most marketing professionals in the United States probably belong to the American Marketing Association. Associations also indicate that you take your career pursuits seriously and that you are educated about the latest trends and standards that pertain to your industry and interests. Additional information may include civic activities, awards, recognitions, volunteering, or cultural skills like language or travel. It may also include other interests or activities that may show leadership, character, or qualities you feel are beneficial to your career. For example, if you are looking for a job in the healthcare industry, listing your yoga certification indicates that you are likely a health advocate and leader. You should use good judgment when including additional information on your resume. Information should be related to your career and should not be personal, religious, recreational, or political in nature. If an employer is considering hiring you, he may ask you to supply a list of references. A reference is a person who, if asked, is willing to discuss your skills, abilities, job performance, and general character. Potential employers contact these references and ask questions about your skills, duties, dependability, and/or productivity. In most of the United States, your previous managers and human resources department can only confirm dates of employment, not talk about your performance, so your references should not include previous supervisors. Include their contact information, job title, and a brief description of how they are familiar with your work habits. Never include a family member as a reference unless you have worked with this person in a professional capacity. It is always a good idea to make sure each of your references is aware that he may be called to discuss your skills and abilities. You may even want to provide references with a description of a job you are trying to get, so each can talk about those specific skills and other requirements. To improve your chances of getting a job, choose references who are educated, are well-spoken, are thoroughly familiar with your skills and abilities, have a mutually respectful relationship with you, and will speak positively about your work performance or work ethic. Remember, potential employers want to hear more than "she's just very nice." Next, I'm going to go over some tips and tricks for creating your resume. And then I believe this is our final slide, and then we'll talk about signing up for the interview coaching. Actually, I'm sorry, we have 3 more slides, and then we'll talk about interview coaching. Consider using the following techniques as you approach writing your resume. Customize your resume for each position you are applying for. Use your summary or profile section to highlight your skills and expertise as they relate to the specific job. Better yet, carry this customization throughout the entire resume. It may be convenient to create several versions of your resume based on common positions you will be applying for, so you can eliminate the amount of customization you will have to do for each job. Make sure the rest of your resume supports your summary, profile, or objective. If you include in your summary that you have been a consistent top seller for your region, you should include specific examples in the body of your resume to reinforce this statement. Include keywords on your resume. Keep the job description close by when you are customizing your resume, so you are including keywords and phrases that fit the job, field, or occupation. Recruiters often scan a resume in under 15 seconds. They are looking for keywords that show you have the skills and knowledge required for the position. What I liked to do when I was searching for jobs, I would actually print out or put the job description on my iPad, and I would sit through and highlight those keywords and key skills and experience required so that it stands out when I'm just writing my resume. I have job description on the side and I can see the highlighted keywords and phrases. Be concise. Because some recruiters look at as many 500 resumes to fill one position, They want to see your accomplishments, skills, and experiences in as few words as possible. Bullet points and concise language can showcase your communication skills while highlighting your areas of expertise. List your past work accomplishments, not just your responsibilities, using some form of measures. Hiring managers want to compare your skills and abilities to the other candidates they are considering. For example, tell them what percentage you increased in sales, the number of staff you managed, or the specific scope of a project. Consider using the following techniques as you approach the design of your resume. Use white space and bullet points to help emphasize what you want the hiring manager to know about you. If the hiring manager is scanning to see if you meet the requirements but can't easily spot the information, you may get overlooked. Use bold and italics to emphasize keywords or skills. Be careful not to overuse this technique, though. There are too many elements in bold or italics, the emphasis is lost. Use a larger point font for headings and subheadings. This can help direct attention to certain areas of your resume and also demonstrates a strong level of organization. Use a conservative font like Times New Roman, Arial, or Tahoma. If the font is difficult to read, your resume may not get past the first look. Include adequate white space. This can be done around your headings, blocks of text, and with margins. Hiring managers can use this area to take notes before, during, or after an interview. Along with formatting your presentation, be sure to carefully edit your text. Consider these tips. Use verb tense consistently. For your present job, you can use the present tense, such as design and oversee production of building additions. For previous employment, use past tense, designed and oversaw. Vary your word choice. Even though you are trying to include keywords, don't overdo it. If the key phrase you are trying to include is strategic planning, use a thesaurus to find alternative words like defined program goals and measures. Spell check, and spell check. Almost every recruiter and hiring manager has a story about a resume they threw out because of a misspelled word. Typos and misspelled words show that you are not detail-oriented and conscientious about your work. However, do not rely on your spell checking software alone. Some grammar and spelling mistakes can be easily missed. I always recommend giving your resume to someone that you trust, like a professional or someone that you have a professional relationship with who is aware that you are looking for a new job. Have them look over the resume and see if you can catch any errors that way as well. Here are some common mistakes to avoid. There are several reasons hiring managers consistently put resumes in the no pile. You want to avoid these common mistakes. Don't submit your resume for a position for which you were not qualified. This was cited as the #1 pet peeve among HR professionals on a recent LinkedIn discussion. Make sure you meet at least the basic requirements. Think creatively, though, because sometimes the work you have performed outside of the field may help you meet job requirements. Do not lie. Whether or not it's intentional, including false, inaccurate, or misleading information brings your ethics into question and can even be illegal. Keep in mind that hiring managers are much more likely to Google and/or conduct background checks on candidates to eliminate dishonest ones. Don't disregard your references. While you do not need to post your reference information on your resume, you should at least have them listed in a separate document that can be easily supplied if requested. Make sure your references are willing and ready to discuss your skills and abilities with a potential employer. And I always like to remind people to send a thank you note as a follow-up for them acting as your reference. Either if it's an email or a handwritten note, a thank you goes a long way. Don't use more than 2 fonts. This can make a document difficult to read. The reader's eye needs familiar and easy-to-read fonts like Times New Roman and Tahoma. Do not use clip art on your resume. Clip art is generally considered professional, or is not generally considered professional, and any style or formatting design should be minimal. However, if you are applying for a job in a creative industry, then showcasing your design abilities on your resume may be more acceptable and appealing. Do not include pictures. Unless it is required for the position, your photo is not necessary. Do not include personal or health-related information. This includes your birth date, height and weight, health or marital status, religion or affiliations in clubs that are not related to your career. While it may be appropriate in other cultures and for certain jobs, personal information should generally not be included if you are submitting a resume for a job in the United States. Do not include salary information unless you are specifically asked to do so. Don't misspell anything. Misspelling words, especially words about the position, make you appear careless and unreliable. Use a spell checker and have at least 2 other people proofread your resume for typos and errors. So here are some resume resources that I provided for you. I can email out this presentation once we are finished here so that you have the links available for you. First is a resume template that I created. You simply download and plug in your information. If you don't like this layout, Google Docs and Word all have templates that you can just plug in your information. I would suggest Google Docs over Word. Word has some interesting designs that are not necessarily professional, so I would rely more on Google Docs. Resume Writing Course by GCF Global. This is a great resource if you want to learn more about resume writing standards. And then I have 2 links here to articles about resume writing and formatting. And then any books about resumes, interviewing, job searching can be found at 650.142 in the library. So now I want to show you, actually before I do this, I want to take any questions that might be lingering about resume writing. We have a question about recommending on indication visa status of international people. That's an interesting question, and I'm not actually entirely sure about that. My gut is telling me to not include it because that is more personal information, and I feel like that should be a conversation had during the interview process. If any of the volunteers who are attending would know this a little bit better than I would, please let me know in the chat what advice we can give Diana. Someone is asking to see the last part again. So these were just, I don't know if it was the common mistakes. Sorry, I'm just taking a look at my notes here. So common mistakes, don't submit your resume for a position for which you are not qualified. Do not lie. Do not disregard references, and make sure your references are willing and ready. And always make sure you send the thank you note, either as an email or a call or a handwritten note. Do not use more than 2 fonts. Do not use clip art. Do not include pictures, do not include personal or health related information, do not include salary information, and do not misspell anything. That was my final slide. So as more questions come in, I'm going to quickly show you how to sign up for our interview coaching. These are volunteers from Acton Boxborough United Way who are coming into the library. So this portion will be in person. We moved this resume workshop online due to the impending snowstorm. just to make it so that you don't have to trek out into the snow to come to the library for our workshop. And during the interview coaching, you will work one-on-one with volunteers to go over your interview skills, go over your resume, and more. So you sign up by going to myabuw.org. And once I send out this presentation, you'll have that link there. And it's this first link here. Job seekers sign up for the ABUW Resume Writing and Interview Coaching Pilot Project. So you'll click this dark gray square here. And then you'll see our times. We are having our volunteers come to the library on Tuesday, January 24th, between 12 and 3 and 6 and 8. And again, Thursday, February 2nd at the same times. If you find a time that works for you, say Tuesday the 24th at 1 p.m. to 1:30, you would click respond individually, sign up, and then put in all of the required information. Still used to selecting Massachusetts. I'm going to reveal my age. And then you create a password for your account. And then you can select if you want to receive any information about volunteer opportunities, create your account, and then you'll go through additional questions, and then you'll be able to sign up that way. Let me see here. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize that you couldn't see my screen. Give me one moment to fix that. Trying to figure out how to go back so that we're at the top. Okay, here we go. Okay, so you should be able to see myabuw.org. So it's this first option here, job seekers sign up for the ABUW Resume Writing and Interview Coaching Pilot Project. You'll click that gray square. And it's asking me to create profile, so I'm going to continue doing that. Once you've set up your account, you'll see your name here, and then you will see your selection. I selected Tuesday the 24th at 1 p.m. And then I will click Submit Volunteer Opportunity Response. And then it's that simple. And then you will either, whoops. I'm trying to find the chat and Q&A. You can meet either in person or on Zoom. There is that option, I am being told. So you have that option as well. So make sure you sign up for your interview coaching. It's definitely a resource you don't want to miss out on. And we're very happy to be partnering with the Acton Boxborough United Way. I'm going to invite Carol. She is, I believe, a board member. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to promote her to panelist so she can maybe speak a little bit more about the interview coaching.
Hi, did this work?
I believe it did. I can see you, and I can hear your I can see your name and I can hear you.
Excellent, perfect. So I would hope that all of you sign up for such a one-on-one session. We have several professionals who will talk with you, review your resume, help you further improve it. And then if you want to do a mock-up interview, so you are better prepared for the next step. And they can keep on providing feedback later on. So if you have any issues signing up, you can contact me. I will put in the chat my email address, and we can take it from there. So if the sign up doesn't work, just email me and you'll be all set. The sessions can be either in person in the Acton library, or they can be on Zoom. You can choose. And if those dates don't work, let me know. We can find other dates too. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Carol. So I'm going to quickly, as Carol puts in her email address, I'm going to quickly show you my contact information. Let me put this in a slideshow. So here's my email and my direct line. And then we do offer one-on-one sessions on a case-by-case basis. So if you wanted more hands-on assistance after our career workshop, you can always email me and we'll be happy to get you on the schedule. So that pretty much concludes our resume workshop. Thank you so much for attending. If you have any questions at all, or you want someone to take a look at your resume, you can always email me or give me a call, and I'm happy to help out in any way that I can.